Welcome to the Occupy Democrat show from the great city of St. Louis, Missouri. My name is Mark Bland.
And I am Jason Cole.
And welcome to our show. We appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us every single Tuesday and Thursday at 4:30 p.m. to hang out on these sweltering summer days, Jason. It is hell outside, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't know, it is hell outside.
It's a scorcher.
It's so hot.
Yes.
Way hotter than any people wearing suit coats should ever be walking around in. That's all I can tell you. But let's get to it, Jason, because this is why we have the show.
Yeah.
By the way, how's things going for you? How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
Everything's going swimmingly in life. We never get to talk about that on the show very much, but I want people to know that this is our show, that we do this together, and that we're real people, so we care about each other. And
that's right.
You went to a baseball game, right?
I did.
And
who was it? Place team.
Who was it?
Place team.
Who was it between?
It was between the Cardinals and the Cubs, and the third place Cardinals won. There you go. End of story. Third place Cardinals. They won.
Okay, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. There's nothing more that we can do about that.
Maybe the next few days. It might not be the case.
Maybe not going to happen. Cardinals are going to sweep them, smoke them.
I don't know about that.
They're going to beat them a lot. But that's great.
That is great.
Because while that's going on in America.
Yes, everything else wasn't so great.
Everything else is not going so swimmingly in our country. The Supreme Court lifted an injunction that protected immigrants from deportation to dangerous countries like South Sudan and Libya without due process, allowing the Trump administration to expel them without notice or hearing. The unsigned order on the emergency docket effectively nullified the Convention Against Torture and related federal laws. The decision ignored the Trump administration's repeated violations of lower court orders, including deporting immigrants in defiance of Judge Brian Murphy's rulings. Justice Sotomayor dissented, arguing that the administration's unclean hands should have disqualified it from receiving emergency relief. The ruling signals that Trump's administration can flout lower court orders without consequence, undermining the rule of law and judicial authority in America. And that's a big deal, ladies and gentlemen, because let me explain. Jason,
yes,
we have a lot of things going on in the world right now. We're going to talk a little bit about Iran and the Israeli conflict coming up here in a little bit. We've got an interview with Rick Pearlstein. That's coming up. We're excited. He is the author of Reaganland and Nixonland and a few books.
Visible Bridge.
I'm excited to talk to Rick.
He's fun to talk to.
We've had him on the show before.
Yes.
Great guy. Love talking to him then. And I'm really excited to hear his opinions, especially since Reaganland, like we talked about Reaganland, is so much down the road of the idea of the Cold War and foreign powers that have nuclear weapons, and they're going to hurt you Americans, and they're going to take it out on you. So you need to be paying attention. That's a big piece of the 1980s and the Reagan.
He was the closer of the Cold War.
That's right. So a lot of that matters. And so you're going to see similarities between some of the stuff Rick talks about today and what was going on back in the 1980s with Ronald Reagan, Iran-Contra affair, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's all a piece of this. You don't understand. There's historical pieces like the Iran-Contra affair that are literally a part of these discussions and why Trump does what he does, Netanyahu does what he does. And some of these guys like Netanyahu were working in politics in their countries at the time those things were happening. They were a part of those things in some form or fashion. Yes. So it all matters. But while he's doing all these things in other places, the reason I brought that up, Jason, is he's doing things behind the scenes here. Things that are going to have long-reaching effects, ladies and gentlemen, into other pieces of Americana that have nothing to do with Israel and Iran, that have nothing to do with the immigration processes that are going on here. These are the ability to flout people of power that we have put in positions to make sure we have laws that are being handled properly. Like, that's the most layman way I can put it. We've put people in these positions to handle laws in a proper way. Donald Trump is ignoring all of that. When he sent back Abrego Garcia, when he sent Kilmar back, he ignored a 9-0 court ruling from the Supreme Court that said, don't do this. He ignored it completely. Now he's got the Supreme Court helping him.
Yeah, they reward him again.
with the due process aspect, as he turned around and he didn't talk to Congress about starting a war with another country. Another flouting of the laws and going out of your way to not talk to the people that were put in a position to handle these things properly for a reason. By the way, we'll talk more when we get to that, but when you subvert the United States Congress, Donald Trump, you're turning your back on the people that voted for you in the United States of America. See, those are our elected officials like Josh Hawley or Eric Schmidt that we put into those positions, and other states did it for their states. And we have Congress people too, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got Ro Khanna that we're trying to get on this show.
Yes.
Like, we're going to do an interview with Rick today. We might be doing one with Ro Khanna in a few days. We're not sure. We're working on these things. But my point is, these people make these decisions for a reason. They were elected to be our Congress people to make these decisions while we're all at work. See, remember, you want everybody to pull their bootstraps up. So they did. And while they're pulling their bootstraps up, teaching kids or other things, we have people that are in Washington, D.C. to speak on our behalf. When you ignore them and you just go do whatever you want, you have ignored the United States laws. You have ignored the United States citizens. And it's getting bad, Jay. Can you put up this video of this father from Santa Ana? He is the father of Marines. He was attacked in a parking lot. And as you can tell, we've already got 3 dudes on top of him from multiple angles. We got 2 dudes standing around them, and then another 2 or 3 dudes just standing around cars, Jason. Look at that. They're beating the hell out of this man and trying to get him under control. And look at how they're dressed.
That's what law enforcement looks like in America, apparently.
Yeah, now it just says police and ICE underneath it. Like, it's not even a real ICE. Like, they're not even real ICE. They're police officers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are they police officers or ICE agents?
Yeah, who knows who they are?
Are they arresting or are they detaining? Look at this. Look at him choking him as they try to get him into this car. And he's the father of 2 Marines. By the way, the heavyset guy right there that couldn't beat that guy in a foot race, if he tried his hardest, he couldn't beat you or me in a foot race if he tried his hardest. He probably never even served in the military at all. Possibly. I don't know that guy specifically. He's got his head covered with a mask, and I can't see his name or anything like that, Jason. But look at this.
That's the thing. And these aren't undercover agents, you know. They're not.
And they're not doing it in a secret way where they like grab somebody, pull them over here. No, this is like literally cars driving by on the side of the road, just standing on top of people.
Or they're just wearing street clothes. I would react the same way if a bunch of guys in street clothes jump out of an unmarked van and try to put cuffs on me.
What about due process? Oh, I'm sorry, that's gone.
Yeah, we don't need that anymore.
I just read you the story of the Supreme Court deciding that there is no due process if you want to extradite people to third-party countries. That would be a Honduras, a Nicaragua. That would be a CCOT and places like that. Like, that's a third-party country.
They'll claim this is for legal immigration. They want to deter that. But what they're deterring is legal immigration. Because why would you come here, become a citizen, or get a work visa if they might just grab you on the street and send you somewhere before you even have the chance to prove your case in court?
Correct.
I wouldn't come here if I didn't already. If I wasn't a citizen, as I am now, I wouldn't come here.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
Jay.
I mean,
I don't understand how you guys aren't seeing where this is falling out. There's bigger things at play here. Like I said, with that, ignoring Congress, ignoring this, ignoring that, it's going to become bigger than just this guy and his 2 kids that were Marines and getting beat up. It's going to become you. Now, I've come on this show and I said, go ahead. Go ahead and deport those illegals over there because they need to be deported. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Jason and me don't have a problem with people who are illegally here in the country being deported or sent to where they deserve to go if they're illegally here. Illegally. We have a story that was sent to us right before we went on the air. We didn't get a chance to talk about it much, and we don't have anything to play for it right this second. But the story is about a father, a Purple Heart veteran.
Yeah.
Who's self-deporting himself.
2-time Purple Heart veteran. Or shot twice.
2-time receiver of a Purple Heart. He is self-deporting because he had problems in his life. He had tried to make up for those problems. Mm-hmm. He's been a person in the United States since he was 7 years old. He's now 55. So that's a long time. He knows the rules of America. He understood these things when he made the decisions he made. But since then, he's paid his price.
Yes.
He went to prison. He paid his time. He does the things that he's told to do now. He goes and sees the person once a year to make sure that he's staying on his P's and Q's and this, that, and the other. He's here legally on a green card that he got when he was 7. Then he went into the military. Then he fought for your country.
Yeah,
he's from Asia. He's from South Korea.
Well, he did what Donald Trump didn't do. He took up arms in defense of our country against a foreign adversary. Donald Trump got bone spurs. This guy didn't have bone spurs.
That's right. He didn't have bone spurs. So he went and took a couple of bullets on your behalf. Now he has to self-deport. Do you want to know why? He has to self-deport because when he went to his last hearing, Trump administration has changed so many things. He was going to be deported, or he had to do it voluntarily is what they told him, or else.
Yeah, for a 20-year-old failure to appear in court charge.
There it is. Purple Heart veterans. Yeah, they might be people of color. Yeah, they might be from other countries.
No.
What about it when it's your white ass who's 6 generations in as an American citizen? What about that? I'm not trying to say white, black, or nobody deserves these problems. Nobody. But ladies and gentlemen, I came on this show and I said, if you want to really get to the ears of the people that are the issue, you're going to have to talk to the white people that are sycophants for Donald Trump right now, and you're going to have to explain it to them. And they don't understand it unless some other white person's trying to take from them.
That's a tough job.
They don't care until the white dude tries to do it or the white lady tries to do it. Then it's a problem. Well, Donald Trump's a white dude who had bone spurs, did not go to the military, did not take Purple Hearts, did not take shots to the chest or the arm or the anything. And then he decided to send your family members back to other countries.
Yeah. In fact, didn't he say his Vietnam was not getting an STD in the 80s?
He did.
He told Howard Stern that.
He told Howard Stern that. So, he also said that his daughter was so hot that he would have sex with her while she sat on his lap on the Howard Stern show. You can go look that up.
She was one of the people that he chose.
Go search up Howard Stern, Donald Trump, Ivanka. Go ahead. I don't have to lie to any of you. You can go do this with your own phones in your own pockets.
Whether or not he was joking or not, it's one thing.
Yeah.
He said it, but here's the thing. Is that something you joke about? Like, I've never cracked a joke about that. Like,
no.
Like,
never. You and me
I've never been around anyone that brought that up as a funny moment.
Never once.
You're like, hey, here's a zinger. You know what I would do? You know, like, he's a sick dude.
Jason, do you remember the story of Martir Garcia Lara?
Yes.
If you could play that video for me, Metro, take a look at this.
His name was Martir Garcia. He was in 4th grade. He is 9 years old. My brother is 9. My brother is 9. He got detained in Los Angeles, and they're taking him to Texas, and they're trying to deport him to Honduras. He's 9. By going to a court hearing. Something that they were supposed to do to check his immigration status, and they're trying to deport him to Honduras. He's in 4th grade. Say his name. He's in 4th grade.
4th?
It's just getting ridiculous.
Grade, Jason. Martir Garcia Lara. We'll say his name. We don't have a problem. The issue is you've already taken him to Texas. He was born in California. By the way, the United States Constitution says that if you are born in the United States of America in these 48 continuous states, that you are a naturalized citizen of the United States of America. I don't care what color he is. That's my fellow American brother right there. He's in 4th grade. He should not be going to Honduras, much less Texas now.
No.
He should be in school or hanging out with his friends this summer at a pool party. That's what he should be doing.
Doing what 4th graders do.
Just like my son or your daughter or anybody else that we love, Jason.
You know why Trump gets fourth graders and people at work and people at court? Because it's the easy targets.
Oh, they can't push back? They can't fight?
Well, Donald Trump's not strong enough and not a strong enough leader to go after MS-13 gang members.
No, he's not.
That's why we're not picking up gang members on the street, because that's hard. Finding people who are peaceful and go into court.
What if they don't have the word illegal just written somewhere on their body? Like, how do you figure out who the illegals are? The fourth grader?
Yeah.
Jay, let me ask. The fourth grader? Right now, ICE agents in St. Louis and around the entire country, wherever you're sitting having your meals and discussing things with people and your plans for what's coming up this week, are any of you talking about fourth grade classrooms in your city? Are any of you? What about the school that's just a couple blocks away? Are you talking about hitting that one for some kids? No, you're not. By the way, born in America, same Constitution. He's your brother. He's not an illegal. He didn't crawl overboard. He's in fourth grade, Jay.
And it's that Constitution that they claim to love so much. So it's in there.
What Constitution?
Yeah, the one
that Donald Trump doesn't listen to?
Yeah, the one that's inside his Bible.
The one that the SCOTUS doesn't protect? By the way, SCOTUS, if you don't protect that Constitution, you lose your value, period. Who cares if the President of the United States says you do or don't have power? It's us, the people, that give you the position of power. We're the ones who created the government as it stands. We're the ones who created a Supreme Court and put justices on it. Donald Trump wasn't there the day they created the Supreme Court.
He was not.
Sorry. A long time before you were around, that Supreme Court was formulated by people that were also elected to the position of President of the United States, who those people at that time period, with their communication style and their technology at their time period in history, no matter how rudimentary or old and uneducated you might think it was, they chose those people into those positions to create that. And by the way, every person after them, every single one after them in America that existed, Jason, allowed those positions to continue on till this day, when we still have a Supreme Court with multiple justices and rules for them to discuss.
Right.
Do you see how everybody even signed off on it silently over decades? That's my point. The United States government's where it's at. Jason, I know we got a lot coming up with our friend Rick Pearlstein. Yes. There's so much. Please play this ICE director video for me. Like, there's so much to talk about.
My officers and agents walk into danger so other people can sleep safely at night, so kids can make it to school safely and play outside. So while it's easy to be an armchair quarterback and make up talking points that get activists riled up, the bottom line is my officers and agents are out there protecting the same people who are threatening their safety. Law enforcement's common sense. Politicians need to stop putting my people in danger. I'm not asking them to stop. I'm demanding that they stop. Here's what I have to say to Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, and anyone else stirring up the outrage about what ICE does. These are real people with real families you're hurting with your ridiculous rhetoric and inflammatory comments. And it's time to remember that.
You're right.
Yeah, you know what? He's right. Those are real people with real families and real feelings.
Correct, Jason.
That they're rounding up at Home Depot and municipal
beating on
court.
the side of the road.
Right. Yeah, like you're going into what dangerous places? Municipal court? The Home Depot parking lot? Wherever this fourth grader was?
Immigration hearings where they're literally courts and judges right there making decisions with other security standing around, so that when they come out the doors, you're right there to just take them down the hallway.
Todd Lyons. This is me playing the world's smallest violin for Todd Lyons and his poor ICE agents.
By the way, Todd, you're not wrong at all. We do agree with you, like we just said.
Yes.
There are ICE agents out there that are doing work on behalf of the United States government, and they are supposed to be looking for illegals to detain. And yes, you should have every right to do your jobs properly. Correct. And the laws of the United States, as long as Donald Trump doesn't step all over them and make them worthless with the Supreme Court, yes, all of those laws should defend you so that if you get hurt in these raids, you're going to be protected too. But what about the fourth grader? Do you see how I just
it's
wrap back around to the fourth grader? It's like Jason asked, what about the fourth grader?
Well, it's just another example of this administration's lack of understanding of the multiple departments. We have 3 branches of government. He doesn't like the fact that there are congressmen shining a light on potential illegal activities that ICE is doing. So he's mad.
The question is, Jason, back to my original point at the top of the show.
Yes.
Is this happening because he needs this immigration stuff to keep going on? Or is it because this keeps everyone at home looking at the TV screens as he makes huge moves over here to put us into worse positions and get away with it? And then none of us said we stopped him. And therefore he goes, you never stopped me here and you never stopped me there. So now it's 3 years into my presidency and boom.
Yeah.
Now he's coming after a bunch of other things, ruining laws, dismantling the Supreme Court, getting rid of Congress that he doesn't feel he needs approval from. Things like that.
Well, it's just another example of Trump administration officials attacking people who are meant to keep them in line.
And by the way, Jason.
Yes.
You know, our ICE director there, he had a lot to say about individuals treating his officers badly. But you know what I noticed? I noticed that they dress a certain way. I noticed that they have a certain way that they look, and it's something that could be easily copied by other human beings.
Easily. They look like Proud Boys, for God's sakes.
Not only that, it could even be people by like LaTrance Battle.
LaTrance Battle, yes.
You guys know who LaTrance Battle is? Well, let's introduce you to LaTrance.
Yeah, we've got a video of her getting arrested here. So she's a Florida woman. Figured. She's 52 years old. She was arrested for allegedly impersonating, get this, an ICE agent to kidnap her ex-boyfriend's wife from her workplace at Days Inn in Panama City Beach, Florida. So just like ICE agents, she shows up. She wore a shirt with ICE printed on the front and carried a walkie-talkie to simulate communication with other agents, convincing the victim, who was in the process of becoming a U.S. resident, that she was a legitimate ICE officer.
That's wild, Jason.
She tricked her to get into her car, took her phone, drove her to an apartment complex, and then that's when she found out she wasn't an ICE agent.
Oh.
The woman eventually got away and found a passerby to help her get a hold of authorities. She is arrested for
impersonating.
Yes, let's see. Here it is: kidnapping in the commission of a felony, robbery by sudden snatching. I'd never heard of that. Impersonating a law enforcement officer in the commission of a felony, and felony violation of probation. She was apparently on probation.
There it is, everybody. There it is. Are you paying attention, America? There it is, right there. Now the people that have nothing to do with ICE are pretending to be ICE to create problems in your life.
Yeah.
Once again, it doesn't have to be Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't need to be the guy doing anything. He can set it in motion here,
they'll do it on their
play
own.
all the games over there, and now others that want to play Gravy Seal, pretend ICE. By the way, this is somebody who wanted to do it to get after somebody else specifically because they thought it would be a great idea.
Yeah.
Wait till the Gravy Seals decide it's a Friday night, they're bored and ain't got nothing going on.
They're gonna go round
and
up.
They decide they want to go pretend to be ICE agents and play some games on a Friday night. It's going to get real hairy. And once again, when them white dudes start talking to them dudes in their town that never got picked for kickball in 8th grade with them, and they're mad about it, they're going to have those conversations about running them down as fake ICE agents. And that's going to go horribly. Because trust me, any dude who wants to argue about high school stuff with my white ass, good luck.
You know, go look at those videos of the ICE agents in action. They look just like the Proud Boys looked on January 6th. They are wearing very similar outfits. Not the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers.
Yeah.
They look just like them. They're wearing tactical gear. Yep. They have helmets. This stuff you can buy.
Yeah.
So who knows who these... I don't blame these people for reacting this way.
I don't blame them for reacting this way at all. Also, I want you all to notice something. The ICE agents, whenever they go into these situations, they like to block off with another couple of ICE agents anyone from being able to get to the situation. Now, mind you, if a cop's fighting another suspect on the side of the road after pulls him over for speeding or whatever, and then they find out that they're on the run or whatever, they start fighting on the side of the road, nobody ever pulls over to, like, other than to maybe help the cop. Like, no one ever, stops everybody from getting around it and protects them from, like, nope. That's criminal. Only happening here, Jason, with ICE agents, which is odd to me, ladies and gentlemen. That's odd.
I just, they could alleviate a lot of stuff if they just wore uniforms. I don't understand why they don't. They announce who they are when they show up, apparently. Okay. Why don't you have a uniform on?
So in the United States of America, we have people that are pretending to be ICE agents. We have the Supreme Court lifting due process bans and things like that, due process.
Send you anywhere.
Injunctions for due process. And we're supposed to be worried about ceasefires in Iran and Israel. And we're supposed to be worried about the NATO and the G7 and the this and Vladimir Putin. And by the way, there's an entire Ukraine-Russian war that still have our name drug into it constantly because for the last few years we've been doing that. And
we need a ceasefire between Donald Trump and the American people. That's what we need.
We just need a ceasefire that works at all.
5 seconds.
All right, it's almost time for us to talk to Rick Pearlstein. We're going to take a quick break here on the show. And when we come back, the host, well, not the host, the author. I apologize. The author of Nixon Land and Reagan Land will be with us. Rick Pearlstein will be back after this. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show.
Yeah.
We talked about ICE raids. We talked about people getting treated like crap.
Yeah.
We talked about a lot of bad things. But you know what, Jason?
Well, impersonating ICE raids.
Impersonating specifically. But do you know what, Jason? These things have been happening in our country for decades and decades. And it's not always the same problem, ladies and gentlemen. To talk to us about these problems and these issues, the author of Nixon Land and Reagan Land and what's the other one? The Invisible
Bridge.
The Invisible Bridge. Rick Pearlstein is here with us. What's up, Rick?
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Good to be with you.
Thank you so much for being on the
those Democrats.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being on Occupy Democrats. Sorry, we got a little bit of tiny delay, but it shouldn't be too bad for you. But thank you for being on the show with us. We really appreciate it.
That's great.
Before we get started, I do want to ask you a simple question, Jason, and I feel like it's an appropriate question to start this all off on, Rick. As we have been walking into since the inauguration on January 20th, and as you have watched, right, you're the author who's written about a lot of these different topics. You've seen these things, thought about them a million different ways in your own head, sipping on some brandy with a cigar in your mouth, however it was. You've thought about these things a million ways. What you're seeing now, what's the lay of the land mentally and currently for a person like Rick Pearlstein?
One word: fascism, the F word. I actually was the first person, I think, to write about whether or not Trump was a fascist back in the late summer of 2015. Based on really how white nationalists were responding to his campaign. These were people who had completely sworn off the two parties as, twin wings of the Zionist occupation government. And they said, this guy is speaking our language. Actually, in that particular article, I kind of gave a qualified, well, not really fascist, because he's not trying to so degrade the opposition party that he was trying to turn America into a one-party state. Very soon after that, I started revising that. I think that for a historian who's spent, like myself, 30 years studying the rise of the right in America, for most of that time, the experience of Europe, right, in the first half of the 20th century, and South America in the 1970s just did not seem relevant to the story. And suddenly there's no way to understand what Trump is up to without studying people like Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda minister, the way someone like Augusto Pinochet in Chile would disappear regime opponents and enemies, right? I mean, we saw, beginning with the Black Lives Matter protests, meme makers on the right turning the helicopter into a symbol of the MAGA movement, because Augusto Pinochet was infamous for throwing his enemies out of helicopters.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Google the helicopter ride and
That's
liberals.
crazy. But you're right. Like, you weren't seeing this up front 10 years ago when this dude walks into office the first time. But slowly now, you're starting to see every piece of what you said, that earliest 20th century that you didn't think really resonated as much. Now it's starting to really resonate.
And the thing about it is, historians like myself, and I wrote a piece about this in the New York Times Magazine in 2017, are reevaluating how we looked at past American conservative history and saying, wow, a lot of the DNA has been there from the start, and we kind of been ignoring it.
Would you say, and this is popping into my head off the top based off of our conversation right here, would you say that belief in the 1980s, right? You wrote Reaganland, that belief in the 1980s of, okay, and I talked to Jason off the air about this a little bit. So you had the Cold War, and the idea was foreign people with nuclear warheads are going to hurt you, but then it never happens. And so, like, because it never happens, and you're Gen X, and you're a kid like Mark and Jason, and you're growing up in the 1980s, and because it never happens, it just kind of goes out of your peripheral, and you just don't hear about it.
The man who cried wolf kind of situation. I think a lot of it was kind of that way. One of the things I studied and wrote about in my book Reaganland was how terrified mainstream media was of Ronald Reagan, as he kind of ramped up his campaign through the late 1970s and into 1980. He was a crazy guy. He was this old grandpa who was, kind of semi-demented, who, was like you say, kind of like a nuke, kind of nuclear kind of he was fascinated with nuclear weapons. You guys all remember in the early 80s that we were all terrified that we weren't going to last out the decade. And when it turned out that he kind of had the wit to kind of surround himself with a lot of establishment people and the discipline to know that he couldn't speak explicitly about a lot of the things that he believed, a lot of the media, the mainstream media, which is such a big part of the problem of how we got this way, we're like, oh, well, we can live with Reagan, right? Maybe Reagan is back the center of American politics and not the fringe. And you see that over and over again. And you saw that, with Reagan, part of the experience of the Reagan White House was every once in a while, he would kind of go off script and say something absolutely crazy. And people kind of look the other way and ignore it. Like the time he said, made a joke, we begin bombing in 5 minutes, when he didn't know the mic was live. Or when he said that they had solved their racial problems in South Africa better than we had.
Well,
right?
He did a lot of that before, like, addresses to the nation. He would joke before they came on air, but then we call it hot mic moments today.
Sure, right. And one of the things I did in that book that I was really proud of is I was able to find a file of letters that his staffers wrote for him to sign that would be sent to people like New York Times columnists and, kind of mainstream senators. And they were all designed to make it seem like he was this, sophisticated intellectual who, was, again, broadly in the center of American political opinion.
Rick, Trump's
and I also found the
like
file.
That.
Yeah, and I also found the file of letters that he dictated to his buddies when he sounds like a member of the John Birch Society.
That was a thing that the right did a lot back then, though, staging to make their candidates look strong, because Nixon did that when he ran in 68. Was it 68 or 72 when he ran? He set up the fake town halls that were filled with, like, staffers' wives and stuff.
So this is an obvious thing that they keep doing.
Jason, do you know who set up those fake town halls?
Huh.
Very obscure figure. He kind of went off into the sunset. His name was Roger Ailes.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, Roger Ailes.
That's
right. Just a small guy in history. Yeah.
But, you talk about the beginning in 2015, whether he's a fascist or not, and you talk about the mainstream media. What do you think now about the capitulations that media is doing with bowing to the Trump administration with CBS and 60 Minutes and Terry Moran and ABC, sort of like trying to rein in their people preemptive?
Yeah, you can kind of date that back to the Reagan era too. And one of the things that Reagan did was when TV news became a big deal in the 1960s, right? And it became a big deal by spending a lot of resources sending people down to the South, right, to record the horrors of Southern segregation, sending people to Vietnam. And you guys remember when we were kids, the news was really boring.
Oh yeah.
Like your dad would turn on the news and you'd get mad and want to watch
Right.
like the cartoons or whatever, right?
No
And the reason
sensational
it was so
pieces.
boring,
Yeah.
it was kind of eat your spinach because those networks had affiliates that could not have broadcast licenses unless the FCC decided that they were broadcasting in the public interest. And one of the many terrible things that Ronald Reagan did, and frankly, that Bill Clinton exacerbated with the Telecommunications Act, was that he got rid of those standards, right?
Yeah, he
So
eliminated what was
it used
the
to be kind of a loss leader. They wouldn't care if CBS News and Walter Cronkite lost money and it didn't get great ratings, became a profit center.
or
And TV news just became one of the watersheds for that was when CBS hired Roone Arledge, their sports producer, to be the head of the news, the guy who did Why World of Sports and Monday Night Football. So the media was turned into, as the country became more and more addicted to profit as the only measure of public worth. That is one of those historical threads that we can bring to CBS capitulating, right?
yes.
CBS would have been proud to stand up to a bully. In fact, as they did in the 1950s, right? See it now. The George Clooney broadcast of his Broadway play, formerly the movie, right, about how a guy named Edward R. Murrow, who became famous for standing on rooftops in London during World War II and standing up to Hitler's bombings in order to broadcast, just explained that Joseph McCarthy was anti-democratic, that he was a bully, that he was making things up.
Yeah.
He went straight into the buzzsaw, and they were proud to do it. And now they're proud to show their shareholders of these massive conglomerates that own them that they're delivering them steady profits every quarter.
Wait, there's even a connection with Trump with the Joseph McCarthy because McCarthy's right-hand man was Roy Cohn.
That is an amazing red thread, right? Should we explain that, or
well,
you want to?
That was Trump's attorney.
Roy Cohn was Joseph McCarthy's lawyer.
Yeah.
Right. Before that, he was the prosecutor who fried the Rosenbergs completely. A woman named Ethel Rosenberg went to the electric chair, the wife, for doing nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And Roy Cohn became a fixer for the mob. Right. He became a New York socialite, and he became the guy that Fred Trump, Donald Trump's father, hired as their lawyer when the Justice Department
sued him in 75 or whatever, 76, yeah.
For having lists of people applying for their apartments and writing C next to the ones that they wouldn't rent to because they were black. And he became Donald Trump's sexy mentor.
Yeah, basically, most of Trump's ideology, in politics anyway, is from Roy Cohn, like the way he treats his adversaries in politics as enemies
right.
and to destroy.
Because that's right. Cohn. And always, kind of, whenever you're attacked, to reverse the terms of attack.
Yes.
Right. To always be the victim.
And that's where we talk about every accusation is an admission of guilt. We say that on the show, and that's got Roy Cohn to thank for that.
Rick,
turn psychological projection into a American creed.
Rick, given your view of Trump's cult-like grip on the GOP, right, from this idea of American fascism, obviously, how do you anticipate his leadership style evolving in 2025 into 2026 as we go towards this midterm, which, by the way, I've said on the show, and I don't know where you stand, Jason and me seem to agree, we feel he's going to draw that line in the sand about elections in the 2026 midterm because he wants that all worked out before 2028 if he's going to try to make any moves. How do you see this idea of consolidating power within this fractious Republican Party right now?
Well, it's like a ratchet, right? It only goes in one direction. That's in the direction of more and more authoritarianism. Because nothing he does can possibly succeed. No promise he makes can ever be fulfilled, right? He can't, deport 3,000 people a day. And even if he did, the results would be disastrous, right? He can't bring peace to the Middle East. And when he tries, the results might be apocalyptic, right? So he can't possibly go to the voters on, look at my record. He can only go to the voters based on deception, lies, demagoguery, cheating, gerrymandering,
All the fun ones. Yep.
And maybe a declaration of martial law, right? I mean, one of the things that people really need to understand that's going on right now on the right is the word sleeper cells is something you're hearing all the time. So if if the war in the Middle East continues and America's involvement in it continues, and there's a terrorist attack by Iranian assets, it will be blamed by everyone on the right, from Fox News to Donald Trump on down, on Joseph Biden for supposedly, quote unquote, opening the borders. And we'll see a martial law crackdown.
And then on top of it, we get sleeper cells, Jason. And the beauty of sleeper cells, Jason and Rick, are we can say that sleeper cells are terrorists and we need to deport terrorists. And we have to go after every human being that we think is a bad person. You said Joseph Goebbels earlier. Sounds like we're getting some brown shirts over here, homie.
Yeah. I mean, you really kind of have to use German words to describe this stuff. One of the words I've been using is Führerprinzip, right? Which means leader principle, which means that all truth and all authority emits from the central charismatic leader, right? And this is what you see when, 60% of Republicans say we shouldn't, bomb Iran. And then after we bomb Iran, 60% say, wow, bombing Iran was a swell idea.
Well, they almost already tried to do that. A few months back, Karen Levitt said everything from the Justice Department will come through her or through the
right, this is the rewiring of the federal government.
Yes, the Attorney General or the President, if it doesn't
the President's will, which is exactly why we have a Constitution for that not to be the case.
And that's my problem, Rick, I got right now. We're doing Iran and Israel, and we're doing Ukraine and Russia, and we're doing all this stuff everywhere else, and then here at home, we're ignoring those 9-0 Supreme Court decisions, and we're ignoring injunctions, and we're doing all these things that
the big,
once all that's
bill.
over. Say that again?
I mean, if this budget passes, we're going to see a generational cataclysm. Everything good will be gone. I'm already talking to, people who are losing their grants, to do wonderful stuff, like save lives and make historical documentaries.
Yeah, well, that's science. I'm sorry, Rick, but science doesn't matter anymore, evidently. Let me get on my airplane that flies through the air. I'll be right back. Gosh, Rick, if we're obviously we've been talking to Rick for a few minutes here on the show, and we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day. We just got a couple more questions we want to ask you before we get out of here. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, I got one. You probably get asked a lot in every interview to compare Trump to Nixon. But can there really be a comparison? Because other than the lawlessness, Richard Nixon's personality is not of Donald Trump's. Richard Nixon,
right? He was a very disciplined guy.
Yes,
he would prepare very carefully. He would literally memorize press conference questions, which is very different. But one thing about Donald Trump and Richard Nixon is what people don't understand, and I'm pretty well positioned to explain, is that had they not gotten caught with Watergate, what Richard Nixon had planned for his second term when he won 49 states was straight up Trumpery, right? One of the things he actually did was he fired his entire cabinet and made them kind of reapply for the job. And the only qualification was you'll do what I say no matter what, right? Super Trumpy. There was a guy named Fred Malek who wrote this manual about how they could fire civil servants and get around civil service laws, right? Super Trumpy. They had a whole operation figuring out whether recipients of federal grants were politically loyal to the White House. Yeah, super Trumpy.
This sounds a lot like Project 1974 is what it sounds like, not Project 2025.
In my column last year in the American Prospect, I compared, I called it Project 1972.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
And that's the thing, like the lawlessness and then this need for vengeance, I would say would be my comparison.
Super Trumpian, super Nixonian.
Yeah, that is most apt.
There's a great line on the tapes when he said, they're using any means, we need to use any means, right?
Yes.
These Boy Scouts in the Democratic Party who are supposedly nastier than you can possibly imagine.
Now, Rick, I'm going to ask you a really important question. And it's one that you probably don't get asked by a lot of people in the world of politics or even in media. Right now, you're sitting with Mark and Jason, the new hosts of the Occupy Democrats show here. You're our first interview that we've ever had. And we're talking to a lot of people on a weekly basis about all these things. And the one thing I want to ask you, sir, is a person who's, I consider you an elder to myself, I'm sure. I'm probably younger. Not a knock on you. That's all right. You're wise. You're a wise man. It's not that you're just wise.
Wise ass, that's for sure.
That's fair. That's fair. That's possible. I don't know. But what do you want to see from people like me and Jason in the media who are talking to everyone every week on this type of topics? What do you want to see from us? What kind of things do you want us to tell the people? Because it needs to be heard, and people like you want it heard.
Any opportunity you have to resist, get your body in the street. If you're someone who is in a family or professional situation where you can stand in front of, one of these fake cops of ICE, do it, right? If you can stand there with a sign, do it. If you can call your congressman to get them to, not be a wimp, do it. And if you can knock on doors for 2026, do it.
Well, Jason,
that's good advice.
I think Mr. Pearlstein has given us some very solid advice. We've been told to resist, to not give in. And by the way, Mr. Pearlstein, we'll make you a promise. Me and Jason will not give in. We will keep you that promise.
Never.
All right. Jason's the one who's got one final question for you. I know he's got it. You got one?
Oh, I already know he's not a Cubs fan.
He's not a Cubs fan?
No.
Okay. Well, is he a fan of another baseball team? Where are you from, sure. Rick? Rick, where are you from? Where do you live at?
I grew up in Milwaukee. I'm not a big baseball guy. My favorite sport is tournament bass fishing and big mountain skiing.
Tournament bass fishing?
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. I know a guy named Guido Hibden that would love to talk to you someday. Okay. He would love to.
Hey,
all right.
Even in those bass fishing tournaments, you've got scandal, though. They're always filling those fish full of weights.
That's right. We've seen that a few times.
Jason, those are walleye tournaments.
That's a good point. He does have a good point.Ose aren't bass fishing tournaments, though.
Those walleye people.
Bass fishermen will beat those guys up at the boat dock. Like they really would. I know they would.
Don't allow for any tomfoolery.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Rick Pearlstein, the author of Nixon Land, Reagan Land, and many other books, has been our guest today. Thank you, Rick, so much. How can people get a hold of you? How can they find out about you? Tell them what they need to know right now.
I'm on the Blue Sky, Rick Pearlstein. I'm on the Twitter still, Rick Pearlstein. And look for my book next year, The Infernal Triangle, How America Got This Way. And I'm going to go back to it right now. I'm literally typing it out as we speak.
And nice. But before we go, you don't have to bury the lead, but how did America get this way? Was it just stupidity?
60 years of trying.
Authoritarian Republicans, wimpy Democrats, and incompetent media. The Infernal Triangle.
There you are.
So basically, Donald Trump and then me and you. That's how it got here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Rick Pearlstein, thank you so much for your time today, sir. We do appreciate it. That's been Rick Pearlstein right there, ladies and gentlemen. And we are happy to have a gentleman like that be our first guest. And he made a lot of good points.
I bother him quite often with questions and just to talk. That man, his knowledge is, Stephen King wrote on the back of one of his books that his nonfiction reads like a mystery thriller, like a work of fiction.
Sure.
He's just a gifted writer.
And it's nonfiction.
Yes,
that's the most important part. It's nonfiction, and it reads like that because of how amazing human beings are in a world.
If you like documentaries, I suggest you go pick up any one of his books and read it. It's a documentary for your mind. You could see the imagery in your head as you read it. It doesn't get any better than his books. If you love history. If you don't like history, you probably think his books are boring.
I'm glad that we had Rick on. We're going to have to definitely have him on Occupy Democrat show in the future. I'm excited. The reason I'm excited is because with great guests like Rick, I see what the potential for us as a country is. Do you see what I'm saying? Not that he wasn't there before, but those voices getting out. Stay strong. Don't fall down. Don't let them push you around. Like, those voices are what's going to help us get through the next 4 years of Donald Trump.
Well, and
for sure.
People like Rick Pearlstein, they know the things that the MAGA people don't. They have the knowledge. They have the information. They knows what he's talking about. So if he's telling you something is playing out this way, someone is acting like a certain person, trust him. He knows. Yeah. He's researched it. He's not lazy. He's not He's not an anti-intellectual. He knows what's going on.
And we're never going to bring anybody on here who's going to waste your time, ladies and gentlemen.
No.
As you heard, that man broke it down between the 1970s, the 1980s, and the 2020s. Yep. Like, he broke it down piece by piece for you guys across the board. And as much as I love Rick, and as much as I know Rick had a lot going on, there's one last thing that we need to talk about before we get out of here on the show. How much time we got left there? Metro, we're good? We're at the end? We're close?
We're at negative time.
What's that again? All right. Can you play me this clip of Donald Trump being asked about the Israeli-Iran ceasefire situation this morning?
You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
There you go, bud. That's big boy language. That's what that is. You know what he looked like? He looked like a 14-year-old that just said his first cuss word.
Two countries that don't know what the fuck they're doing.
They seem to.
You know what I know about people who don't know what the fuck they're doing, Donald Trump? Usually they didn't know it before I met them. They didn't change it and do anything different after I met them because I maintained the opinion that they just didn't know what the fuck they were doing. It's a blood feud. It's hard to argue Abraham and Ishmael and Isaac when I'm worried about my brother you just bombed 2 months ago or my wife you killed 3 years ago in a different attack. It's a blood feud. It's not about reasoning anymore. It started in religion. It's now 2020, and it's about nuclear weapons and whether they have them or not. And by the way, whether it's a 6-hour ceasefire, a 12-hour ceasefire, a 30-year ceasefire. Benjamin Netanyahu told me in 2002 they were a couple months away from a fully enriched nuclear warhead.
Heck, even further than that. But back in the 90s, they were saying
in the 90s he was saying it?
I want to say the earliest I remember hearing that was like 91, 92.
Oh, exactly, because all of that comes to an end in the 70s, and from that point on, Iran was trying with the Ayatollah Khomeini to enrich uranium and blow up the world. By the way, only Russia mattered from 1980 to 89. If Russia had a nuclear warhead, that was an issue. By the way, in 2025, like they have hundreds of nuclear warheads, and you know about all of them, and nothing is happening to you because mutually assured destruction. That's how dumb Donald Trump is. He doesn't understand mutually assured destruction.
No.
He doesn't understand why a Netanyahu and these guys. I had an argument with a lady today, Jason. Oh, we can't hurt Israel. Those are the good people. They're on our side. The people with the religion that hates your Jesus Christ. Oh, well, those are the good people. Those people are those are the good people. Christianity, that's our thing. But those are the good. The ones I'm talking to, those are the good people. Are they? Because their book says he's not important. Right. They get all of their marching orders from the books, the Quran, the Bible, the this book, the that book. They get their marching orders from their books. That's my point, Jay. So you held the Bible upside down. You don't understand religion. How do you know what the fuck is going on? That's the real question, Trump. It's not them, it's you. What the fuck do you know is going on?
Well, I don't know. Have any of them passed a cognitive test in the past few months?
With a huge score, Jay.
I know someone who has.
A huge cognitive test score.
So, no wonder he's saying they don't know what they're doing.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to first off, as we're getting out of here, thank Rick Pearlstein, the author of Nixon Land, for being on our show today. That was fantastic.
Could have sipped brandy with him and talked to him for 5 hours.
We could have talked to him for another hour straight, for sure. I have at least 5 more questions that I wanted to hear from him on, and I easily could have nailed that out. We might have to do that on an independent interview, dude.
Probably be like, stop bothering me, Jason.
No. He looked like he was in the game, man. He was cool with it. Like,
he's a super cool guy.
He's down for it. it's time for us to get out of here on the show. Make sure you check us out down here at this stuff down here. That's me, Mark Bland, and that's Jay over there, and he does his thing. I do my things. And make sure you also follow us at all of the Occupy Democrat stuff at Occupy Democrats on all social media channels. That's how you get a hold of us, Jay.
Yeah. Put some stuff in the comments.
Yeah, put some stuff in the comments. We love to read the comments. I'll talk back. I'll talk shit with you guys. I don't care. I'm not like the rest of these media people. Jason's not like the rest of these media people. We'll fight with you. We'll argue. We don't mind having a back and forth with you. But you're going to have to wait to hear from us for at least a couple more days. We will see you guys at 4:30 p.m. on Thursday. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you then.